Hi there, this is Jeanette Comerford and this is day 6 of my Christmas series for 2016. Today we're going to be making some little Santa mini cards. I used a stamp set from My Favorite Things, which I just love. I think this Santa is so cute, and you can see how I just used part of the stamp, and I have a sort of raised circle over top of the image, and inside the card I stamped little coordinating sentiments that come with the set. And I was able to sort of match the sentiment with the image. So this one says that you're one of Santa's favorites. The next one that I thought went with this image says you're on the nice list. So I just sort of mixed and matched the sentiments to go with the image. So here's the stamps and the dies that I'm going to be using. Everything is going to be linked below this video on YouTube, so you'll be able to find what I used. So I took a piece of Neenah cardstock and I just trimmed it so that it measured 7 across, and then I turned it and I cut some mini cards measuring 3.5. So once I sort of score these in half, I'll have my mini cards. I did go ahead and just trim down some of the pattern paper from the pack to 3.5 squares. I will be die cutting them later, but I just sort of thought it would be easier to have them sort of cut ahead of time. So I'm just scoring those cards so that you have your little square. You can make these any size you want. I just thought it would be fun to make little tiny ones. They can also be used as little gift tags or whatever you want. Here's some fun foam. I'm going to pull that out, and some Stick It. So this is basically just, there's contact paper on each side of the Stick It, and you're able to adhere two things together with it. So I just cut the Stick It and the fun foam to size, and I'm going to take off that first layer of contact paper and adhere that down to the foam. Then I'm just going to make sure that I'm able to cut 3 circles here. So in the end I had to trim down the cardstock a little bit so that I could fit 2 on one piece and then another third one on another piece. So you're going to see what I'm doing in a minute. So that's that piece that will fit 2, and there's another piece that will fit 1. Good way of using up your scrap paper as well. So now I'm going to line up these 2 so that I'm going to be able to cut out a little circular frame. Use some Post-it tape to keep them together, and then I'll just run it through my Big Shot. Then I'm going to carefully remove the dies or the cut out from the dies, making sure to keep the dies adhered together with the Post-it tape. Then I'll just be able to cut a second, do the same thing, make sure that the dies stay together with the Post-it tape, and then I'll cut out my third one. So the frames I'm going to keep for the card, and then the little circle inserts I'm going to save for another project, and I'll leave a link to that in this video here. So then I needed to cut with the smaller die out of Neenah cardstock. I needed to cut out some circles, and this is going to be where I'm stamping my Santas. So I needed to cut 3, and this is just from plain Neenah cardstock. And then those squares that I cut from the pattern paper, I'm just going to cut them with this die, and this is a My Favorite Things die that has like little cross stitches around the edges, so it just adds a little bit of detail to keep it from looking too plain. So I'll just go ahead and adhere those to each of my cards, making sure to line them up. And this is also a great sort of card to make like in mass production. You can make a bunch of these rather than just doing 3. You could do like 12 or 20. It lends itself really well to that. So I added a little bit of adhesive to the frames, and you can see that they're popping up off the card. And so that when I color up my Santas, they'll sit inside that frame. So I'm using my MISTI tool, and I'm just lining up the stamp exactly where I want it on the circle. I only want a little bit of the image, and I'm going to be using a very pale Memento ink. This is, I believe it's called Desert Sand. It's almost skin color. It's very, very pale. So I will add a little bit of post-it tape to the back of those, and then put the magnet, line up the stamp where I want it to stamp on the circle, and then stamp. You could also have just stamped out the 3 Santas on cardstock and then just die cut the shape out. You can do it either way. It doesn't really make a difference, whatever way you find easier. So here's my final one, and now we'll get to coloring. So you can see here that it's quite a different look with this desert sand. And we'll start putting the Copic markers on, and you're going to see that the lines will start disappearing. Now you're not going to see it so much with this lighter color. This is the E00. I laid that down, and then I blended it out with the E00. But once I start putting this E11 on, you can start to see that the line starts to disappear. So this is sort of what I guess people mean when they say no line technique. You actually do have a very faint line to use, but it will disappear as you're coloring. So once I have the darkness and depth I want, I can go ahead and just blend everything out with that lighter color. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with his hands. And I colored all 3 Santas the exact same way. The only difference is in the other 2 Santas, I did add a little R30 for cheek color. So I've already colored up one of the Santas, and now I'm going to color up this one. So I'm using some nice red colors, and I'm tracing out the areas where I want my shadows to be, and I'm being very careful to cover up over the line, because you don't really want to see that line. So I find this takes a little bit more time than regular coloring when you have that dark black line for your image. But then once you blend everything out, it looks so pretty. So we'll do the same thing here for his coat. I'm just outlining those lines because they will disappear when you color over them with the darker markers, so you do need to trace them out so you know where they are. And then you can go in with your darker colors and add your shading. As well, you want to keep those lines so you know where they are. So now I'm just filling everything in with my mid-tone here, just shading or blending everything away, and then I'll add my lighter color. And you can always go back in and add a little bit more of your darker color if you feel you need more shadow. So I used these reds for all 3 Santas. And as well for his, the fur on his hat here, and his little snowball, or his, not a snowball, it's not a snowball, it's a pom-pom. So as well as his pom-pom and his beard, I'm using these cool gray colors. And again, you can see I'm going over those lines, so I know where they are. I'm adding the shadows, and then I will blend with my mid color, and I'm blending right over top that dark color. That way it'll be a little bit more soft. And you can see as the lines start to disappear, you can see what a fun look this is. Then I'll just use some colorless blender just to blend all those lines away. Being careful not to go anywhere near the red. Doing the belt now, just 2 colors of gray. For the present, I also just use 2 colors of green. There's not a whole lot of area to color, so I usually use the darker one and then blend with my lighter one, and then if I need to, I'll go back with the darker one, add a little more shading. So I'm sorry I'm going a little bit out of frame here. I am going in with that darker green marker. Adding some yellow for the bow on the present. And all 3 Santas were colored in the same way. I'm just using a little bit of a Prismacolor pencil for the mouth and then a very dark gray for the eyes. I've sharpened them really well, so they're very, very, very pointy, and that just sort of makes the eyes and the mouth pop out. I'm going to show you that again. So there's the mouth using sort of a pink color and then adding dots with the eyes, and it just makes everything sort of pop out. So now I'm going to be able to adhere these onto those card bases so they just pop right into the circle. And then I'm just going to add the sentiments. So I'm just going to open up the card on my MISTI, adhere it down with the magnets, and just stamp my image. So for the sentiment, I'm using some VersaFine black onyx ink. I find that this ink is really, really good for fine details, so something like sentiments. And then for the images, I'm using the Memento Tuxedo London Fog, it's called. So it's just a lighter gray, and it just gives it a little extra something. I thought it looked better than stamping both of them in the dark black. So like I said before, I sort of matched the sentiments with the images. And using the MISTI is like so helpful. I find it is such a time saver. So those are my little mini cards with Santa. Thank you so much for watching. Here's a picture of the Copic markers that I used. A full list of all the supplies and links can be found below this video on YouTube or on my blog. Thanks for watching.